I got it's the timeline of space exploration, and it starts in 1957.
Yep. That's when I got out of college.
Yeah.
July of 1957.
Me.
And the problem was,
Yeah.
nobody knew, the problem in my department was, nobody knew how to get to orbit. We'd always run out of fuel before we got there.
Well, was the idea to just go into orbit, or was the idea to go to the moon, or was the idea?
No, 57. It was, if you can get a 1 pound canister into orbit, you're a hero.
Really?
Yeah. They're blowing rockets up. They're blowing up on the pads, and.
So you know, in say 53 when you went in, that you wanted to
No.
get into space, or?
No. When I went in the fall of 52, I thought I was going to be an airplane designer. And I worked in the industry after my junior year, and everything I heard from the people in the industry was go get your master's degree.
All right.
Because if you go get your master's degree, you'll be put on a fast track for promotion.
Yeah.
And you'll get paid better. So I went to one of the professors, Blacki, good Polish professor.
At Illinois?
At Illinois, the University of Illinois, and told him I wanted to get a master's degree and I needed a sponsor.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm your man. So he gave me a topic that I had to write a thesis on.
Uh-huh.
And the topic was aerodynamic heating in the upper atmosphere.
Aerodynamic heating in the upper atmosphere.
Yes, it's at maybe 50 miles up, 80 miles up, something like that. If you're going 20,000 feet per second, there are still enough molecules, air molecules, that are going to hit your vehicle.
Right.
That it's going to heat up, just the way the heat shield warms up, you know, and all that. So we did a whole series of shapes, cones, spheres, and at different speeds and different altitudes, and compiled a paper that had all of these heating results in it. And I said, well, I guess I'm going to be a space guy.
Do you think that that extra year of doing the masters, that also kept you from getting into the airplane industry?
By the time I got my bachelor's degree, I had a job for the summer at Douglas Aircraft Company in Santa Monica. And they gave me a choice. I could go work in the airplane division, or I could go work in the missiles and rockets division.
Uh-huh.
Funny space then.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Missiles and rockets. And so I chose the missiles and rockets division.
And that was in 57?
That was 56.
56.
Summer of 56.
So where were you at when Sputnik did its first orbit? It says October 57.
I was at Douglas Aircraft Company in Santa Monica. Yeah, I wasn't on being a new hire right out of college, I wasn't on the space
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
They had their best trajectory guys, and I mean, we didn't have the rockets back then, you know.
Yeah.
We had a Thor. Douglas had the Thor rocket. It was 6 feet in diameter, and it was...
Are these rockets for defense? Or
Yes.
what's the...
Yes, they were all weapons.
So what was your first what was your first job?
My first job...
What's your first project?
My first job was I was assigned to a project called Genie.
Okay.
It was MB-1, Missile Ballistic 1,
Yeah.
in the Air Force. It's the first ballistic missile the Air Force developed. And it was a defensive weapon. The idea behind it was it would stop the threat of fleets of bombers from Russia coming across Canada
Right.
and raining bombs on our cities.
Right.
The MB-1 weighed 800 pounds. It had 300 pounds of propellant. It was about 8 feet long and 15 inches in diameter and had a nuclear warhead. They put me in a group where the group engineer wanted to go on to bigger and better things. And the group engineer was the first level of supervision at Douglas.
Right.
He was the day-to-day guy who kept his group working. And so they groomed me to be the group engineer because I had a master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
We were the aerodynamicists, flight mechanics,
Mm-hmm.
but we had to set up what are called ballistic tables. And they're like firing tables for a cannon. You want the cannon to go 10 miles?
Mm-hmm.
You point it at 33 degrees above the horizon. You want it to go 16 miles, you point it at some other angle.
So you were in charge of the launching angles and...
So, yes. So we had to calculate all of that as to what our rocket would do.
Right.
And they put that in a table in the fire control system of the aircraft that carried our rocket. So the aircraft would radar in on a target, and when it got a distance that was in the firing table,
Mm-hmm.
it fired the rocket.
Right.
Bingo. And it'd blow a 2-mile hole in the sky. So if that was a fleet of bombers, they're all gone.
Yeah.
They're all gone. And it was a very effective weapon. It went operational on the F-89 in 1957,
Mm-hmm.
and it was still being used in 1974 as the primary air defense weapon along the Canadian and Alaskan borders.
Oh, wow.
So it was foolproof.
Now they tested it, what, like nukes out
Well,
in New Mexico, or?
Yeah, not nukes. Well, they had one nuclear exercise back in those days where they had troops down on the ground and they came in at 20,000 feet and squeezed off on nuclear MB-1.
Yeah.
Let it fly for 7 seconds and exploded the nuclear warhead just to see what the effects would be from
Yeah.
20,000 feet and big mushroom cloud and all that. But
Yeah.
the pilots were trained by coming to Alamogordo, New Mexico, to Holloman Air Force Base. And we had our rockets down there with a warhead in them that was just powder.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we do is we get 2 airplanes. And one airplane would go flying across the countryside, and the other airplane would come in for the attack. And this guy would lock his radar on the target, squeeze off the round, and immediately dive to get the hell out of there,
Mm-hmm.
because if it were the real thing, it was a nuclear explosion that
Yeah.
was going to go off.
Yeah.
there was some chance that he could get too much radiation. So, and we fired 2 rounds a week for 7 or 8 years. These guys had come down there and train, and it was a very, very successful program. Douglas just kept cranking those things out and cranking those things out, and
But you never had to use them.
never used them.